Fahim Pashtun Wardag, thank you for joining us. Fahim is a Pashtun Afghan. Throughout his whole life, he has borne witness to the conflict because, of course, it's 20 years since the US invaded, but there's been war in Afghanistan since 1980. So that's 40 years of war. Fahim has been collecting evidence for 48 years of war and atrocities in Afghanistan. He lost brothers in the conflicts, and at 18 he joined the Mujahideen under the leadership, it says, of the Ikhwan Muslimin guerrillas resisting what you call the Soviet occupation. That's a lot of war, Fahim. How many decades? Oh, that's across 5 decades. And you don't look old enough, but tell us what it was like for you and your family.
د عادل خدای په سپېڅلي نامه. Thank you. It is something unexpected. Like a child, you are sleeping and all of a sudden you hear like stones falling on the roof. And you think, this is not snow, this is not rain. What the hell is this? And you wake up in your dream, and then you find corners to hide from these sounds. You never heard of them. And in the morning, you go outside, you see the body parts of people. And that's the first time in 1978, when I was quite young, I heard and I saw the killings of 9 young police officers who were guarding our homes, and they were killed. I call them WAM, warlords, human rights violators and mass murderers. And that's the first time when I saw body parts at the age of 9. Then your brothers, your family sees this carnage. What do you think? How would it affect on your, psyche? You can't forget it. And then after that, you see the bombings, you see the shellings. It's not one airplane, it's not 2, it's not 10. 20, 30 Russian USR airplanes come into a small village and bombing them. And the next day you go there, you see body parts. Destruction. Obviously, as a human being, you feel sorry for your people. And then at a young age, you and your family can do nothing because you're civilians. So you grow with the sense of either culturally revenge for those children, your friends and family members, or seeking justice, or running away from it. Silence cannot do you any good. So it was very hard. It has been the most difficult thing. The wars are coming, and the first war, I was young, I joined the freedom fighters against the USSR after their defeat. 2 years in the Mujahideen, I saw so many contradictions, so many evil actions by those who claim they are, upholding Kalimatullah. And they're doing jihad against the USSR. But they were committing so many atrocities against their own Mujahideen and people that unimaginable. That is how I realized this leadership is not for me. I'm not going to follow them. After the defeat of Russians, I left.
Wow. Well, we'll come back to the personal testimony that you have given there, maybe dissect it. But I want to go some of the greatest thefts of the last century. I don't know how many billions of the trillions has been actually stolen by the political class in Afghanistan. None of it reached the ordinary Afghan man and woman, boy or girl. So it's all been for nothing, is my point.
Actually, I would like to look at it from a different perspective. You called it a blunder or disaster or failure. And I call it the most successful evil project designed in Pentagon and implemented by NATO's invading forces and its partners, who call them WAM or JAPAP, warlords, human rights violators, and mass murderers. And ISI, CIA, and the Taliban, they're all there, co-conspirators to run this project. And you say $6 to $7 trillion. If the war wasn't there, this $6 to $7 trillion would not have been created. General Michael Flynn, the Trump's first security advisor, national security advisor, behind the closed door, he himself said, the conflicts we participate, it's because of a machinery, and it creates wealth. So the $6 to $7 trillion that has been looted for the NATO's taxpayers has been poured into the pockets of defense complex and their acolytes and the co-conspirators and co-criminals at the cost of the genocide of my people. 1 million people have been killed, and 80 million people are suffering from depression, and war veterans are on the, PTSD, committing suicide.
Fahim, ontology is important. Let's call the Taliban what they are. They are a backward, obscurantist, brutal organization, but at least they are purely national. They have no intention of occupying Stockholm or Paris. Al-Qaeda and ISIS, though, are all of those things and more, but they are a pan-global threat to the world. They do want to rule London and Stockholm and so on. Is that the future for your country once the US and Britain leave?
No, the future for Afghanistan is quite gloomy. I look at it from the perspective of DPG, Defense Policy Guidance, because the whole war in Afghanistan was orchestrated in the DPG, and Dick Cheney was the head of it in 1990s. So Afghanistan for 20 years was targeted to trigger mass US military upgrade. They made $6 to $7 trillion. I put the figure 3 to 6. So they made $6 to $7 trillion from this war, and the Taliban were not national. They were just like, the grinding mill. They've got two stones. So the Taliban were the base stone for this war, and the government installed, they were the top stone. Inside, on the brains and bodies of my people, Pentagon made $6 to $7 trillion. So they were just making targets, the brains and bodies of my people, targets for this war. So for 20 years, because 2022, DPG would be declassified. Remember, it's 30 years later, that would be declassified. That's one issue, they're leaving Afghanistan. The second issue, Pentagon has got no budget for smaller arms that was used in this theater. So they didn't have budget, they leave them. Like you have a chicken farm and you want to upgrade it to a sheep and buffalo farm. So those small weapons and the small things you have to remove them. For a time you have to, prepare the ground for the sheep farm, bring big arm, big knives, big saws, everything. They are going to create Afghanistan for such a scenario. They would make Taliban in 5 pieces. One would be brought into the government, one piece, the other would be given provinces, the other would be surrogate for ISIS and Daesh to destabilize Central Asia, Russia and China.
The kind of groundhog day that
Like
you
what they did in
described.
Syria.
But I know you're going to say not a failure for them. They made trillions out of it. But from the point of view of an Afghan, a total failure?
No, it's a genocide, destruction of 80 million lives, or the most successful evil project of DPG and Pentagon. The most successful evil project in human history by Pentagon and NATO's allies and their one criminal friends.
I think we'll make that the last word.